We had to head to the Hatshepsut Hall at the Metropolitan Museum to see clearer statues of her, but each face looked different from the other. So what did she actually look like? At the beginning of Hatshepsut's reign, we see that she carried the facial features of her father. Her face appeared ordinary and was painted yellow, as women's statues in Egyptian iconography were painted yellow, while men's were painted red. Later, Hatshepsut's statues took on a more masculine appearance, with her face changing significantly. She was depicted with a sharper, more pointed chin, a narrower face, alert facial expressions, almond-shaped eyes and high arched eyebrows, which gave her a commanding presence and greater authority. This face seems to appear out of nowhere, and we often tried to see Hatshepsut's real features in it, but this depiction is not the most astonishing one. As showcased in the Metropolitan Museum's collection, what captures the attention of visitors is the apparent transformation of Hatshepsut from queen to king. At the start of her reign as pharaoh, it is evident that she was content to be represented as a woman, both a woman and a pharaoh. However, over time, her feminine traits began to disappear. What happened? Perhaps we see an iconic transformation taking place rapidly, as if Hatshepsut was changing inside a cocoon, gradually shedding her feminine appearance to become more masculine. Her depictions became increasingly androgynous, eventually abandoning her feminine nature altogether. Hatshepsut did not hide the fact that she was a woman and always used feminine pronouns. She was simply Her Majesty the Queen. Although there were female pharaohs in Egyptian history, they were exceptional cases. Among 345 pharaohs over 3,000 years, only 5 were women, and Hatshepsut was the only one who ruled for an extended period, about 22 years. However, the reason behind her transformations might lie elsewhere. One of the methods a pharaoh used to solidify their authority was the construction of temples and monuments, architectural landmarks that were more magnificent than those of their predecessors. The Egyptians believed that the completion of such projects by the pharaoh was a result of the god's support for them. In fact, she was preoccupied with restoring, rebuilding, and repairing the works of her predecessors. In addition to this, she laid the foundation for something much greater that lasted beyond her reign. This gives us a sense that Hatshepsut was a legitimate pharaoh. Hatshepsut commissioned her architect, Senenmut, to oversee the construction of her mortuary temple at the rock terrace of Deir el-Bahari. Known as the Temple of Millions of Years, this structure is a masterpiece of New Kingdom architecture. It provides a detailed narrative of her life as a pharaoh and glorifies her reign. Hatshepsut left her mark on history, particularly through the monuments she built, such as the Deir el-Bahari Temple. It remains one of the most visited temples in Egypt. The temple measures 275 meters in length and 105 meters in width, and its size is impressive. The inner sanctuary, or Holy of Holies, is a columned structure that sits atop a series of terraces. It is accessible via long ramps surrounded by gardens and was designed to accommodate the religious processions held by Hatshepsut. Directly opposite lies the Karnak Temple, the main residence of the god Amun. Hatshepsut had redesigned part of the Karnak Temple. Hatshepsut alone had grand ambitions for Amun's temple in Karnak. It seems she planned extensively, not only for her temple at Deir el-Bahari. The queen had a comprehensive program to reinforce her legitimacy as a pharaoh. This extensive building program required employing tens of thousands of workers. Hatshepsut built more than others, second only to Ramesses II, despite his longer reign. The construction of the Speos Artemidos was specifically intended to affirm Hatshepsut's authority. It is a temple carved into the rock in the middle of the desert, topped with a long inscription stretching over 22 marble columns. This text addresses both the gods and humans. What can be read today is what we would call a declaration of her faith, affirming her authority through an expressive inscription. She depicted herself as a strong woman, seeking to reassure her people. O princes, O people, listen to this. I have restored what was destroyed, even that which had grown old during the time of the Hyksos, who roamed the delta in a state of chaos and destroyed our temples. Now I sit on the throne of the sun, as it was foretold that I would ascend one day. I have come as the sun god Horus, breathing fire upon my enemies. These heinous acts will never be repeated. When the sun disk rises, it will cast its rays upon my embodiment, and my falcon will soar high above the palaces of princes forever. She affirmed her right to rule through the monuments she constructed. One of the obelisks she erected at Karnak carries a message confirming her authority, stating, "All foreign lands are my servants." Many men accompanied Hatshepsut, but one stood out more than the others: Senamut, her architect and the tutor of her only child, her beloved daughter Neferura. Hatshepsut needed believers in her vision to establish herself as a dominant queen of Egypt, and Senamut was one of them. Senamut bore many titles, over 90 in fact, which reflects his extraordinary prominence. He appears to have been one of the queen's most devoted supporters. Interestingly, there are no records of him having a wife or children. He was likely slightly older than Hatshepsut when she became pharaoh. One of Senamut's tombs, built near Hatshepsut's temple, provides more insight into their relationship. A passageway in his tomb leads to a chamber beneath Hatshepsut's temple, a testament to their close connection. In ancient Egypt, being buried near a pharaoh was a great honor. The walls of his tomb contain inscriptions praising Hatshepsut, emphasizing his role as her most loyal aide. Many believe he was her lover, though others argue their bond was more of a mentor-student relationship, as there may have been a significant age difference between them. Speculation about their relationship persists, but if Hatshepsut had been a male pharaoh, such questions might never have arisen. Could they have been buried together, as some imagine? Or did Senamut grow resentful of remaining in her shadow? It is evident that Senamut was deeply loyal to the pharaoh queen. The monuments dedicated to him underscore his connection to Hatshepsut. However, to uncover the mystery of her disappearance, we must look elsewhere. Fast forward to the modern era, specifically the late 19th century. The French-led Antiquities Department in Cairo realized that artifacts bearing the names of pharaohs were being sold in antiquities markets. These items were not found in known tombs. A young assistant, Heinrich Brugsch, went to Luxor to investigate. He discovered that 3 brothers had stumbled upon a royal cache and were selling its treasures. Brugsch descended into the burial site and uncovered numerous mummies, most of them still in coffins. Through the inscriptions on these coffins, it became evident that they contained the great kings of the New Kingdom, the most glorious period in pharaonic history. This tomb holds mummies of New Kingdom rulers one after another. It is undoubtedly one of the most magnificent discoveries, comparable to the tomb of Tutankhamun. The tomb contains no fewer than 40 mummies, not just any mummies, but those of kings and queens, hidden by priests to protect them from systematic looting in the Valley of the Kings. Without a doubt, many famous figures rest in the coffins within this massive ancient tomb. It is astonishing to behold such an incredible discovery in the history of archaeology. Among them lies one of the greatest pharaohs, Ramses II, preserved in the form of a mummy. Though mummified, his body is remarkably well preserved. This moment is an extraordinary one in the annals of ancient history. Most of the royal mummies are in coffins bearing their names, making them easy to identify. However, Hatshepsut is not among them. Only a box bearing her name and containing some embalmed organs was found. Inside this tomb lies a canopic box inscribed with Mutkare, the throne name of Queen Pharaoh Hatshepsut. This box, known as a canopic jar, contained one of her embalmed organs, along with a tooth that perhaps awaited discovery for years. In that era, Egypt resembled the Wild West, rife with thieves and treasure hunters. The authorities lacked the means to secure the antiquities. Heinrich had little time to catalogue everything, so they decided to move the mummies to the Cairo Museum as quickly as possible. After discovering the royal cache, a large-scale rescue operation was launched to save the historical relics. The coffins and mummies were transported to Cairo overnight on boats in what resembled a royal procession, swiftly organized to transfer these great kings and queens of Egyptian history. Soon, rumors spread among Egyptians about the discovery of the ancient kings and queens. The people of Western Thebes gathered in mourning to witness the departure of the dead. They were in deep sorrow, grieving profoundly for them. Crowds flocked to this spectacular scene on the Nile River, and the public enthusiasm reached its peak. The Egyptians took pride in celebrating their pharaohs. This event found a Western echo 150 years later, in April 2021, during the Golden Parade of the Pharaohs in Cairo. The Egyptian government decided to transfer the royal mummies to the new National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. The process of moving the mummies turned into a grand spectacle, placing the mummies center stage to enhance Egyptians' sense of national identity. The event captured global media attention and prompted people to think about royal mummies for the first time in a long while. It is important to remember that ancient Egyptians performed similar spectacular ceremonies. Among the mummies transferred were Ramses II, Ramses I, and Thutmose III. The procession was awe-inspiring, featuring famous names, including Hatshepsut. Finally, Hatshepsut, the pharaoh long sought by archaeologists, was there. Forgotten for 3,500 years, Hatshepsut has now ascended to the ranks of the greatest pharaohs. This recognition is gratifying for her and for us as archaeologists. She finally holds her rightful place among Egypt's monarchs. But is that truly the mummy of Hatshepsut? To uncover more, we must return to explore the tomb Hatshepsut built in the Valley of the Kings near the temple at Deir el-Bahari. It was the first tomb carved into the Valley of the Kings, making her a pioneer of royal burials in this site. Her tomb may be one of the most famous in the ancient world, and a defining feature of the New Kingdom. Hatshepsut sought to be buried alongside her father, Thutmose I, to solidify her legitimacy. For this reason, she constructed her tomb in the Valley of the Kings, intending to lie beside him in death. Here begins her journey to the afterlife. It is a majestic and awe-inspiring scene. This tomb, known to Egyptologists as KV20, is vast in scale, reflecting the era of Hatshepsut. It is 5 times larger than the tomb of Tutankhamun, and if it had not been looted, it would have been filled with astonishing treasures. Descending into the 200-meter-long and 100-meter-deep tunnel, Egyptologists experience the same thrill as its early explorers. The excitement lies in the possibility of finding a treasure, a mummy, or even a ghost. It's a place that sparks the imagination. In fact, the renowned archaeologist Howard Carter explored Tomb 20 and discovered 2 stone sarcophagi bearing the names of Hatshepsut and her father, Thutmose I. It is believed that Hatshepsut expanded her father's original tomb to include herself as a king, insisting that she be buried there. The Queen's red quartzite sarcophagus was found empty and is now in the Cairo Museum. Scholars are uncertain whether the Queen was ever buried there. The pharaohs who succeeded her followed her example and were buried in the Valley of the Kings, further evidence of Hatshepsut's influence on the destiny of ancient Egypt. This pharaoh left an indelible mark on history. So how did she become so forgotten? At the beginning of the 20th century, archaeologist Howard Carter discovered a new tomb just a few meters away from Hatshepsut's tomb. Entering with confidence that he would uncover treasures, he was disappointed to find it looted long ago. To whom did this tomb belong? In 1906, Carter excavated in the Valley of the Kings and found a tomb containing two women whom he initially believed were wet nurses and thus of little importance. The true identity of these women, however, remains a mystery. Based on inscriptions on one of the coffins, Carter speculated that one of the women was Si-Ra-In, known as Hatshepsut's nurse. The other mummy, whose left arm was crossed over her chest, a royal gesture, suggests she was a queen. What if Howard Carter unknowingly discovered the remains of Hatshepsut? The identification of Hatshepsut's mummy is a complex story. By the end of the 20th century, as her reign became more widely known, many Egyptologists began to question, where is Hatshepsut? In the late 1980s, American scholar Elizabeth Thomas suggested that one of the mummies found in KV60 might be Queen Hatshepsut. Expert theories indicate that by 1069 BCE, Egypt faced widespread looting by tomb robbers. To protect her remains, the priests of Amun hid her body in the tomb of her nurse, Si-Ra-In. However, archaeologist Zahi Hawass initially doubted that this mummy belonged to Hatshepsut. He was surprised by its obesity, noting the sagging breasts, and agreed with Howard Carter's opinion from 80 years prior that the mummy likely belonged to a nursemaid. In 2007, a groundbreaking announcement was made in Egyptology. Zahi Hawass held a press conference, reversing his earlier claims. He confirmed that the mummy found in the tomb of Hatshepsut's nurse was in fact the queen's. In a documentary, Hawass revealed the discovery of a small funerary box containing the pharaoh's internal organs. This box bore Hatshepsut's name and contained mummified remains and a human tooth. Egyptologists analyzed the box and found that the tooth fit into a gap in the molar of the KV60 mummy's skull. Hawass regarded this as conclusive evidence that the mummy was Hatshepsut. However, this sparked debates among scholars. Were the box's contents genuine? The box had been reused and contained residues of a liquid once used for treating the liver or spleen, suggesting it might not be related to Hatshepsut. DNA testing was conducted, but the results were not disclosed, leaving uncertainty about the identification. While the evidence presented by Zahi Hawass is intriguing, scientific analyses suggest it is not definitive. A problem with this theory is the positioning of the mummy's arms, which suggests it belonged to a queen. Yet some argue that Hatshepsut was regarded as a pharaoh, not merely a queen, at the time of her death. This raises doubts about whether the identified body truly belongs to Hatshepsut. The fate of her body remains an open question. The mummy displayed in the museum may not belong to Hatshepsut, and some archaeologists are almost certain that the tooth was deliberately placed in the funerary box. The absence of Hatshepsut from official depictions 22 years after her coronation is considered evidence of her death. No trace of the queen remains. Thutmose III found himself on the throne at the age of 25 to 30, beginning his independent reign following Hatshepsut's death. Initially, Thutmose III handled her legacy cautiously, avoiding tarnishing her memory while also refraining from mentioning her. His confidence grew over time, thanks to the training he had received under his aunt's guidance. He led 16 military campaigns, earning the title Napoleon of Ancient Egypt. and continued to consolidate the empire that would later be ruled by Seti I, Ramses II, and other notable pharaohs. After Hatshepsut's death, it became clear that she had meticulously prepared Thutmose III for his role as king. He had already assumed the throne when he led his first military campaign, a testament to the training and preparation he had received under Hatshepsut. This early readiness to lead a military campaign was a result of her mentorship and guidance. However, 24 years after Hatshepsut's death, Thutmose III changed his stance and ordered the erasure of all references to her reign. Her images were defaced, her royal names obliterated, and her statues destroyed or vandalized. Thutmose III likely saw the period during which he was under his aunt's regency as a grey area in his otherwise illustrious rule. As a great pharaoh, he could not accept the idea of a regent queen ascending to the status of pharaoh. This belief fueled his determination to obliterate all depictions and statues of Hatshepsut, ensuring that such a precedent would not be repeated. What Thutmose III did was erase all traces of Hatshepsut as pharaoh, rewriting history as if there had only been his grandfather, his father, and himself, with no mention of Hatshepsut's existence as a ruler. Perhaps it was not just Hatshepsut herself that unsettled Thutmose III, but also her perspective on power. She adopted a novel approach for her time, as evidenced by depictions showing her alongside her daughter, Neferua, in numerous inscriptions, a practice that was unusual for the Egyptians. These depictions would have been seen as highly unconventional, if not heretical. Pharaohs were typically portrayed with their sons, not a woman with her daughter. Neferua, the queen's only known child, had a prominent status. It is possible that Hatshepsut was grooming her daughter for a significant role, perhaps even to succeed her. This raises the question, was Hatshepsut inclined toward establishing a matriarchal system, passing power from mother to daughter rather than from father to son? Another element supporting this theory is Neferua's title as the daughter of Amun. Hatshepsut appeared to be paving the way for her daughter to take power. It is conceivable that she intended to establish a female dynasty, as evidenced by her insistence on prominently including Neferua in royal imagery. In fact, the reign of Hatshepsut and the pivotal role of her daughter Neferua could be seen as the foundation of a matriarchal system in Egyptian royalty, though such a system did not endure. What if Neferua had returned to claim the throne 20 years after her mother's death? Could her potential political ambitions have fueled the suppression of Hatshepsut's legacy? This remains a theory. Hatshepsut re-emerged in the early 21st century, after being nearly erased from history. Thanks to modern discoveries, we now have glimpses into her personality, a rarity in pharaonic history. Hatshepsut was truly an exceptional pharaoh in every sense of the word. Ambitious and capable, had she been a man, she would undoubtedly have been regarded as one of the great kings of ancient Egypt. In a time when women were expected to remain in the background, Hatshepsut's reign showcased her extraordinary ability to rule. Her rise to the status of pharaoh in a patriarchal society was both remarkable and unique. Though nearly erased from history, the spotlight on her in modern times has revealed her to be a significant figure. While not widely recognized in the modern era, her reign has gained global recognition over the past century. Hatshepsut has since secured her place as an enduring and celebrated figure in the history of Egypt and the world.